I still remember the sound that Brochure made when it hit the table. A soft little slap. Plastic cover. Glossy paper. The kind of sound that does not belong in a kitchen where a family is supposed to love each other. Vanessa smiled as if she were offering me tea. "Pack your bags, old woman," she said. "We've already paid the deposit." My son sat 3 feet away and stared at his phone like the screen could save him from becoming a man. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not throw the brochure back in her face. I only thought one thing, the same thought I had been holding for 7 quiet years. She still does not know whose name is on the deed. If you have ever been made small in your own house by someone who married into your family, stay with me. This is not a story about yelling. This is a story about paper, patience, and the kind of revenge that does not need to raise its voice. My name is Margaret Hale. I am 68 years old. And the day my daughter-in-law tried to erase me from my own life was the day she finally learned what my late husband built into these walls. Robert and I bought the empty lot in 1986 with money we counted twice and still did not believe we had. He was a builder with rough hands and a soft way of speaking when the lights went out. I was a school secretary who learned how to stretch a paycheck until Friday behaved. He drew the house on graph paper at the kitchen table of our tiny apartment. 3 bedrooms. A porch facing west. A pantry big enough for Christmas cookies and bad news. One day, he said, tapping the corner of the sketch, "This will be yours. Not ours in the soft way people say it. Yours. In the hard way banks understand." I laughed. "Robert, it will be ours." He looked at me over his glasses, the way he did when he was not joking. "If something happens to me, I will not leave you arguing with relatives over a couch. I will leave you a key and a piece of paper that cannot be argued with." In 1987, when the house was finished and the paint still smelled like beginnings, Robert put one name on the deed. Mine. Not his and mine. Mine. I told him it felt strange. He kissed my forehead and said strange was safer than sorry. We raised Daniel in that house. Birthday balloons stuck to the ceiling. Homework at the dining table. A dog that dug under the fence and came home muddy and proud. Robert fixed every squeaky door as if doors had feelings. When Daniel was 20, Robert had his first heart scare. When Daniel was 34, Robert did not get a second chance. The funeral smelled like lilies and cold coffee. People said I was strong. Strength is often just shock wearing a black dress. Daniel held my hand and promised he would never leave me alone in that house. For a while, he meant it. Vanessa arrived like weather that looks beautiful until the windows start rattling. She was polished. Smart. Always 5 minutes early and somehow always the center of the room. At the wedding, she hugged me and whispered, "I always wanted a mother I could talk to." I wanted to believe her. Grief makes people hungry for soft words. They moved into the mother-in-law suite after Daniel decided it would be good for everyone. The suite was never meant to be a cage. Robert built it for my mother if she ever needed us. After Mom passed, it became storage, then a guest room, then the place where Vanessa's suitcases never fully unpacked because she treated my house like a hotel she planned to rebrand. The first year was careful. Compliments. Casseroles. A birthday card signed with hearts. The second year grew edges. "Margaret, would you mind not using the front kitchen after 6? Daniel and I meal prep." "Margaret, the kids get confused when you give them snacks without asking." "Margaret, that chair in the living room is vintage. Maybe we move it to your room?" Always a smile. Always a reason that sounded reasonable if you were tired enough. Daniel said, "Mom, she's just organized." Organized is not the same as kind. By the 3rd year, my grandkids called the upstairs Mommy and Daddy's house and the sweet grandma's little place, as if I were renting air from my own life. Vanessa never yelled. That was her talent. She could cut you with a calendar invite. She reorganized my pantry and threw out spices Robert bought in 2004 because expired energy attracts chaos. She donated my good winter coat while I was at a doctor's appointment and replaced it with something cheaper that made me look like I had given up. When I asked, she said, "It was clutter, Mom. Clutter is stress." I started writing things down. Not for court. For my mind. Dates. Phrases. The look on Sophie's face when Vanessa said, "Don't bother Grandma. She's resting." I had not been resting. I had been in the garden. Quiet cruelty is still cruelty. It just photographs better. People ask why I stayed. Because it was my house. Because Robert's handwriting was still on the inside of the kitchen drawer. Because leaving would have meant admitting that my son chose comfort over courage. And because I still believed, foolishly, that love could outweigh disrespect. Christmas of year 5, Vanessa bought matching pajamas for the family. Mine were not in the photo. She said the package must have been delayed. It arrived in January. Wrong size. No apology that sounded like one. Year 6, my hip hurt after rain. Vanessa suggested yoga videos and less dramatic language about pain. Daniel drove me to physical therapy twice and then got busy. Busy is a word men use when they are scared of their wives. Year 7 began with a conversation I was not invited to. I overheard them in the hallway outside my door. Vanessa said she cannot stay forever. The suite is wasted space. Your mother is becoming a full-time job. Daniel said she's fine. Vanessa said she's lonely and she makes the kids soft. Soft kids do not win. Daniel said nothing loud enough to defend me. That night I opened the fireproof box under my bed. Deed. Insurance. Robert's letter, folded so many times the creases looked like scars. Margaret, if anyone ever tries to move you like furniture, remember, the house is not a feeling. It is a fact. Facts beat volume. I slept with the letter under my pillow like a second spine. Let me slow down, because the internet loves endings and skips the middle, and the middle is where the damage learns your schedule. Year 2 was the year of the kitchen. Vanessa decided the kitchen had zones. Her zone was everything with a plug. My zone was a corner of counter the size of a cutting board. She bought labels. She labeled my coffee tin with a sticky note that said guest use only after 6 p.m. I peeled it off. She put it back. We played a war of paper squares. One Sunday I baked Robert's cinnamon rolls for the children. Vanessa announced they were inflammatory and threw 2 into the trash while smiling at me over the lid. We are raising disciplined kids, she said. Sophie looked at the trash can like it had swallowed Christmas. I taught Sophie later, in whispers, that love can be cinnamon and still be allowed. Year 2 was also the year Vanessa rewrote holidays. Thanksgiving at her parents'. Christmas morning delayed until she posted a photo first. Easter egg hunt for content. My house became a set. I became background. Daniel said, "Mom, it's modern family stuff." Modern should not mean motherless. Year 3 brought the group chat. I was not in it. I learned I was not in it when a neighbor asked why I had not confirmed the block party dish. Vanessa had answered for me, "Margaret is low energy these days. We will bring fruit." Low energy. As if grief and age were laziness. I bought a new phone case that day. Purple. Loud. I texted the neighbor myself. I showed up with a casserole that made people close their eyes when they tasted it. Vanessa stood beside me and said, "We made this," and I let the lie hang because some fights are not worth the potato dish. But I wrote it in my notebook. March 14. Claimed my food. Smiled. Children present. Notebooks are not drama. Notebooks are memory with a spine. Year 4 was medical. My doctor wanted a follow-up after a bone density scan. Vanessa offered to handle logistics and then scheduled the appointment at a time she knew I had a friend visiting from out of state. When I rescheduled, she told Daniel I was non-compliant. Non-compliant. Hospital language for women who still decide. I drove myself. I sat in the waiting room reading a magazine about gardens. I got my results. Mild osteopenia. Walk more. Vitamin D. Not a nursing home sentence. Not a personality flaw. On the way home I stopped at the hardware store and bought new batteries for the smoke detectors Robert used to check every daylight saving. I replaced them myself standing on a sturdy chair. My hand shook a little. I still did it. Independence is not a mood. It is a practice. Year 5 was money in small bites. Vanessa suggested a joint account for household efficiency. Daniel almost agreed until I asked one question at dinner. Efficiency for whom? She laughed and said I watched too many true crime shows. I said I watched enough family dinners to know how theft learns manners. They did not get the joint account. They got a spreadsheet instead. Vanessa tracked grocery spending and circled my tea purchases in red. $4. Red. I started keeping my receipts in an envelope labeled Teas and Dignity. Year 5 also held the birthday that broke something soft in me. I turned 67. Daniel forgot until 9 p.m. Vanessa had planned a couples reset weekend and said celebrations for older women should be low-key to avoid pressure. Sophie made a card with crayon hearts. Ethan glued macaroni into a crooked M. Vanessa said, "Say thank you quickly, kids. Bath time." I put the card on Robert's side of the dresser. I told the empty room, we did not raise him to forget on purpose. We raised him to remember under pressure. Pressure arrived wearing perfume. That night I dreamed Robert was measuring the porch again. He looked at me and said, "Do not let them make you small in a house that fits you." I woke up and checked the deed again like a prayer you can photocopy. Year 6 was the grandchildren used as levers. Vanessa told Sophie that Grandma's stories about Grandpa were sad energy and better kept private. Sophie stopped asking for the train story for 2 months. When she asked again, she whispered. Children should not have to whisper for love. I took them to the park while Vanessa was at a seminar on high-performance parenting. We fed ducks. We talked about Robert's laugh. We agreed that sad and beautiful can sit on the same bench. When we returned, Vanessa said park grass was full of germs and made them wash as if I had taken them to a scandal. Daniel said, "She worries." Worry is not a free pass for contempt. There was a night in year 6 when Vanessa unlocked my suite without knocking to borrow a sewing kit and then commented on how dark my room felt, how a smaller place would be brighter, how Sunrise Meadows had wellness lighting. That was the first time she said the name out loud. Sunrise Meadows. I smiled the way women smile when they file something under later. What a poetic name, I said. Sunrise for people being put away before evening. She pretended not to hear irony. People who plan your exit rarely hear your sentences. I should tell you about Robert's will reading, because people assume that is where houses change hands like poker chips. Robert's will left me personal items, accounts, and confirmed what the deed already made true, the house was mine. Daniel received tools, a watch, and a letter that said, "Be good to your mother." The world will try to make that sound optional. Vanessa was not at the will reading. She was on a work call. She asked for a summary later and said, "So basically everything funnels through Margaret until, you know." Until. The favorite word of people who measure your pulse for their floor plan. Daniel said, "Vanessa means when you are gone, Mom." Not in a bad way. There is no good way to say that sentence while eating my soup. The brochure day started ordinary. Coffee. News radio. Ethan asking if worms have birthdays. I laughed and said everything that lives has a day that matters. Vanessa waited until the children left for school. She placed the Sunrise Meadows brochure on the table as if she were serving dessert. We visited last weekend, she said. Private room. Garden. Activities. You will make friends your own age. My friends, I said carefully, know my phone number and my middle name. She tilted her head. Pity practice. Pack your bags, old woman. We've already paid the deposit. The movers come Thursday. Daniel agrees this is healthiest. Daniel's ears turned red. He still did not look at me. Healthiest for whom? I asked. Vanessa's smile sharpened. For the family. For the house. For progress. You had a good run here. A good run. As if my marriage, my grief, my decades, were a jogging hobby. I opened the brochure. Smiling seniors. Soft lighting. A fountain that looked like it had never met real weather. Prices in tiny font. Rules in tinier font. You paid a deposit, I said, on a life that is not yours to sell. Mom, Daniel finally managed, just consider it. Vanessa researched everything. I looked at my son and saw the boy who used to hide behind my legs at fireworks. Then I saw the man who let someone else write his sentences. I will consider, I said, exactly what I need to consider. Vanessa heard agreement because greedy people hear what feeds them. Great, she said. I'll help you sort what fits in one room. We can donate the rest. Minimalism is freedom. I stood up, rinsed my cup, and dried it until the ceramic squeaked. Thursday, I said. I understand the schedule. She almost glowed. I walked to my room, closed the door, and dialed Claire Brennan. Claire had been Robert's attorney for property matters and my friend for longer than Vanessa had been alive. Her voice was coffee and steel. Margaret. Tell me they did not. They did. Nursing home brochure. Deposit paid. Movers Thursday. Silence. Then, are you safe? I am angry. That is a kind of safe. Good. Bring the deed, the will, insurance, and every letter Robert signed. Today. Not tomorrow. I drove with the fireproof box on the passenger seat like a quiet passenger who knew secrets. The town looked the same. Same bakery. Same cracked sidewalk near the library. Betrayal does not change the sky. It only changes how you walk under it. Claire spread the papers on her conference table. Robert was thorough, she said. The deed is solely in your name. No joint tenancy tricks. No transfer on death to Daniel unless you executed one later. Did you? No. Then Daniel has emotional claims and zero ownership. Vanessa has less than zero. She has manners she weaponized. Claire explained options the way a doctor explains surgery, clear, without poetry. We could demand they vacate if they claimed the house as theirs. We could offer a temporary guest agreement with rent. We could do nothing theatrical and simply refuse to leave. The law does not require me to perform shock for people who already decided I was disposable. What do you want, Margaret? Claire asked. I thought of Robert's graph paper. Of Sophie whispering, Grandma, can we bake when Mommy is not watching? Of Vanessa calling me old woman as if age were a stain. I want my house back, I said. And I want them to feel, for one clean hour, what it is like to pack a bag without power. Claire smiled without joy. Then we do this clean. No social media. No screaming in the street. Paper first. Emotion second. We drafted a letter. Formal. Cold. Beautiful. We also prepared a simple reality check. If they insisted on treating me as a tenant, they would learn they were the tenants. Before I left, Claire held my hand. Robert would have hated the brochure, she said. Robert would have built a second house just to spite the first insult, I answered. Then let's use the one he already built. After brochure day, before Thursday, I walked every room like a museum of my own life. Here's where Daniel learned to ride a bike into a bush. Here's where Robert spilled paint and left a blue freckle on the baseboard. Here's where my mother sat the last Christmas she knew my name. I touched the wall and whispered, I am not leaving you to become someone else's content. Then I called 2 friends. Not to gossip. To witness. If anything strange happens, I said, if I suddenly choose a nursing home, ask me in person. Alone. They promised. Good friends are fire exits. On Wednesday night I wrote a letter to myself, which sounds silly until you need proof of your own mind. I am Margaret Hale. I am of sound mind. I do not wish to move to Sunrise Meadows. I do not authorize Vanessa Hale to make housing decisions for me. My home is 14 Willow Bend. The deed is in my name. I signed it. Dated it. Scanned it to Claire. Put a copy in my purse. If you are older and someone is hurrying your life into a box, write things down. Memory is holy. Paper is portable. Tuesday night I cooked lasagna the way Robert liked it, too much cheese, not enough patience. Vanessa said she was intermittent fasting. Daniel ate 2 plates and still would not meet my eyes. Sophie asked if I was going on a trip. Vanessa answered for me. Grandma is going to a special home where people help her. Like a hotel? Sophie asked. Like a hotel for forever, Vanessa said lightly. Ethan started to cry. Vanessa told him big boys do not cry about grown-up plans. I crouched to their level. Listen to me, I said softly. Grandma is not disappearing. Not tomorrow. Not because someone bought shiny paper. Vanessa's face flickered. Margaret, do not confuse them. I am unconfusing them, I said. That night I packed 1 bag. Not for Sunrise Meadows. For Claire's office and, if needed, a hotel of my choosing. Inside, deed copies, medications, Robert's letter, a photo of the 4 of us from a year when Daniel still knew how to stand beside me. I did not sleep much. I listened to the house. The refrigerator hummed. The hallway floor clicked the way it always did near the bathroom. Houses remember who paid for them. Wednesday I went to the bank and confirmed accounts only I controlled. I called the insurance company. I called a locksmith and scheduled Thursday at 11 a.m. for the exterior locks only, with paperwork ready. Claire said timing mattered. Too early looks panicked. Too late looks weak. Wednesday evening Vanessa walked through my suite with a trash bag. We should start, she said. Sentimental items can be photographed. You do not need objects. She picked up Robert's old watch from my dresser. My voice came out steady. Put that down. It's just a watch. It is not yours to categorize. She set it down harder than necessary. Thursday will be easier if you cooperate. Thursday will be educational, I said. She laughed, short and mean. You always talk like a book. That is why no one takes you seriously. I almost told her about the deed then. Almost. But revenge that explains itself too early is just an argument. I let her leave with her trash bag of imaginary power. Thursday morning smelled like rain that could not decide. The moving truck arrived at 8:12. 2 men with kind faces and a clipboard. Vanessa greeted them like a hostess at a charity gala. Everything in the back suite, she said. Label boxes storage or donate. She does not need much. Daniel stood on the porch with coffee and shame. I walked out with my small bag and car keys. Vanessa blinked. Where do you think you are going? We need you to identify items. I have an appointment, I said. Cancel it. This is the day. It is a day, I agreed. Not the one you planned. I drove away while she shouted my name like a leash. At Claire's office, we signed what needed signing. Claire called a process server she trusted. We were not serving eviction yet. We were preparing a notice of ownership and a demand that no property of mine be removed without written consent. We also prepared a letter to Daniel. You may be my son, but you are a guest in this house unless I say otherwise. At 10:40 my phone exploded with messages. Vanessa, the movers need codes. Vanessa, come back now. Vanessa, you are being dramatic and selfish. Daniel, Mom please. This is humiliating. I replied only to Daniel. I am at my attorney's office. Do not let them take my belongings. The house is mine. Read that sentence twice. He called. His voice shook. What do you mean the house is yours? Dad left it to us. Your father left it to me. You assumed. Assumption is not inheritance. Silence. Then a whisper. Vanessa said after you, when you pass, it becomes simple. Vanessa plans funerals early, I said. That should concern you more than my suitcase. Claire took the phone gently and explained, lawyer plain, that title was solely mine, that removing my property could become conversion, that nursing home deposits do not create rights. When I returned at 11:05, the locksmith was already finishing the front door. Vanessa stood on the lawn with the brochure rolled in her fist like a weapon that had failed. You changed the locks, she hissed. On my home? On my home, I said. The movers looked trapped between paychecks and a storm. I handed the lead mover a printed page from Claire. He read. He nodded. He apologized to everyone and no one. Ma'am, we cannot remove property without the owner's authorization. Looks like that's her. Vanessa turned on Daniel. Do something. Daniel looked at me the way he did when he broke the neighbor's window at 12. Mom. I didn't know. You did not ask, I said. Not knowing is cheaper than asking when the answer might inconvenience your marriage. We sat at the dining table I had polished for 30 years. Claire joined by speakerphone so no one could rewrite history later. I placed the deed on the wood. Vanessa reached for it. I did not let her touch it. Robert Hale transferred sole ownership to Margaret Hale in 1987. No subsequent transfer. You live here by my permission. That permission is now conditional. Vanessa laughed too loudly. You cannot throw your own son out. I can set terms, I said. Term 1, you will not speak to me as if I am garbage in a house I own. Term 2, Sunrise Meadows is your problem and your deposit. Term 3, if you want to stay for 30 days while you find another arrangement, you will sign a guest agreement and pay fair rent into an account I control. If not, you leave by Monday with what you brought into this marriage and what Daniel can prove is his. This is insane, Vanessa said. We paid for renovations. You paid for paint and opinions, Claire's voice said. Receipts for paint do not equal equity. Vanessa stood so fast her chair screamed. Daniel, tell her. Tell her we are family. Daniel's mouth opened. Closed. Opened. Mom, he said, can we talk alone? No, I said gently. Alone is where you lose your spine. We talk in the light. Sophie appeared at the hallway edge, backpack half-zipped from some interrupted morning. Ethan held her hand. Is Grandma staying? Sophie asked. I looked at Vanessa when I answered. Yes. Grandma is staying. Grandma was never leaving. Some people just bought a story and tried to sell it to the children. Vanessa's eyes shone with tears that might have been real. Real tears can still serve strategy. You are destroying this family, she whispered. No, I said. I am refusing to be deleted by it. During the standoff at the dining table, Vanessa tried a new angle: religion. Honor your family, she said. Forgiveness is godly. Forgiveness, I said, is not the same as handing you the keys to erase me. You can pray for my softness. You cannot pray the deed into your purse. She called me cold. Cold is what women get called when they stop being convenient. The movers, before they left, told me quietly that they see this more than people think. Adult children. New spouses. Timelines that treat elders like furniture that went out of style. You did it right, one of them said. Paper first. I tipped them for the hour they lost to a moral education. The next hours were ugly in the quiet way. Vanessa called her mother. Her mother called me a bitter woman. I wished her a good afternoon and hung up. Vanessa threatened to call Adult Protective Services and claim I was unstable. Claire had already prepared a letter documenting Vanessa's attempt to force a move without medical evaluation, without my consent, and with financial motive tied to the house. Claire said, if they call, we answer with facts. Facts enjoy daylight. Daniel sat on the porch steps like a man waiting for a bus he was not sure he deserved. I brought him water. I failed you, he said. You failed yourself first, I answered. That is reparable. Failing me was the symptom. I love her. Love that requires erasing your mother is not love. It is alliance. He cried. I let him. I did not wipe his tears. He was 41. Some lessons need salt. By late afternoon, Vanessa packed her own suitcase with theatrical fury. She took designer clothes and left the kids' art on the fridge as if love could be a hostage. You will regret this, she told me at the door. I regretted silence longer, I said. Daniel did not leave that night. He slept in the guest room that used to be his childhood bedroom. The kids stayed with me in the living room under blankets, watching a movie about a dog that finds its way home. Art imitating hope. Friday morning, Vanessa returned with a smile polished for war. I overreacted, she said. We can mediate. Family therapy. You keep the suite. We keep the upstairs. Everyone wins. I poured coffee. You called me old woman and paid a deposit on my disappearance. That is not a scheduling conflict. That is a confession. People say things when stressed. People reveal things when stressed, I corrected. Claire arrived in person with the guest agreement. 30 days. Rent. No removal of my property. No discussing my death as a floor plan. No private conversations with the children about grandma leaving. Vanessa refused to sign. Then Monday, I said. Keys on the table. She looked at Daniel. Choose. There it was. The real brochure. Not Sunrise Meadows. The choice. Daniel's voice was thin but real. I choose my mother not being thrown away. If you cannot live with that, I will help you move. Vanessa left without slamming the door. That scared me more than slamming. Quiet exits plan returns. But for the first time in 7 years, the air in the house belonged to me again. Monday came. Some Mondays are weather. This one was a verdict. Vanessa's brother arrived with a truck. She took what was hers and a few things that were not until I pointed at the inventory Claire helped me make. She put back Robert's tools. She put back the good blender she claimed she bought, until the receipt in my file drawer reminded her otherwise. At the curb, she looked up at the porch where Robert once hung Christmas lights crooked on purpose because perfection made him nervous. "You won," she said coldly. "Enjoy your empty victory." "It is not empty," I said. "It has a deed, 2 grandchildren, and a son learning how to be a son." Daniel did not hug her for the cameras of the neighborhood. He helped load boxes like a man paying a debt. After the truck left, the house exhaled. We ate grilled cheese. Sophie asked if people could be sorry for real. I said yes, if sorry comes with changed hands, not just changed tone. Ethan asked if the nursing home would be lonely without grandma. I said nursing homes are for people who need them or choose them, not for people who are inconvenient. That night I sat on the porch with Robert's letter. "Margaret, facts beat volume." I whispered, "They tried volume, love. We used facts." A moth tapped the porch light. The neighborhood dogs argued about nothing. Somewhere a television laughed on cue. I was not triumphant in the movie way. Triumph in real life is often just a clean kitchen and a door you can lock without asking permission. In the weeks that followed, life became ordinary again, which is a kind of miracle. Daniel attended counseling. He apologized in sentences that did not include the word but. He cooked badly and tried again. He told the children the truth at their level. Grown-ups made a selfish plan, and Grandma stopped it because this house is hers and love does not get to erase people. Vanessa sent a long email about misunderstanding, stress, and how I had always preferred Daniel as a boy instead of accepting her as a daughter. I did not reply with matching length. Claire advised one line. All communication regarding property or children can go through counsel until further notice. Some bridges are not burned. Some are closed for safety inspection. Sophie and I baked cookies and burned the first tray and laughed. Ethan started a worm journal. The sweet stayed a sweet, not a sentence. In counseling, Daniel said Vanessa made him feel like a failure when he sided with me. I told the counselor I made him feel like a son when he did. Both things can be true. Only one thing can be allowed to run the house. Sophie asked me once, weeks later, if revenge is bad. I said, hurting people for fun is bad. Protecting your name, your home, and your peace with the truth is not revenge. It is maintenance. She nodded like a person who would need that sentence again at 30. If Vanessa hears this story someday, I hope she hears the part where I offered 30 days and a contract. I hope she hears that I did not drag her name through the neighborhood for sport. I hope she also hears the brochure hit the table again in her memory, and flinches. Because flinching is how conscience starts. I thought about posting nothing, saying nothing, disappearing into quiet. Then I thought about every woman who sat at a table while someone slid a brochure toward her future. So I will say this plainly. If someone treats your aging like a storage problem, check the paper. If someone marries into your family and starts managing you like a staff member, check the paper. If your child goes silent when you are insulted, do not only blame the in-law. Ask what silence buys them. My revenge was not poison. It was not public shame for sport. It was ownership, timing, and the refusal to pack a bag for someone else's comfort. Vanessa called me old woman. She was right about one thing. I am old. Old enough to know that kindness without boundaries is how houses get stolen with smiles. Old enough to wait 7 years if waiting keeps the peace, and one morning if peace has become a lie. Old enough to hold a deed and a memory of a man who loved me in the hard way banks understand. If this story found you in a kitchen where the air feels wrong, I hope you breathe. I hope you call someone who knows the law. I hope you keep your name on the things that are yours. And if you are a son listening, or a daughter, or someone who married into a family and found power intoxicating, learn this. The quiet parent is not weak. The quiet parent may be counting. Counting years. Counting insults. Counting the days until paper becomes a door. Do not force that door to slam. Knock with respect while it still opens from the inside. I will end where I began, because circles are how old women keep from getting lost. The brochure slapped the table. She said, "Pack your bags, old woman." She had already paid the deposit. She did not know the deposit could not buy my name. Robert built this house with one signature for a reason. Not because he hated our son. Because he loved me in the practical language of survival. I am still here. The porch light still clicks. The deed still says Margaret Hale. And every night I sleep without packing. I consider that a quiet kind of justice. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helped you feel less alone, share it with someone who needs courage more than they need politeness. Subscribe if you want more family revenge stories told slow and honest. I post so you remember you are not crazy for wanting dignity. My name is Margaret Hale. The movers left without my life in their truck. The brochure went into recycling. And the deed stayed exactly where Robert put it. In my name. This story is fictional and created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. The warning is still real, check the paper. Keep your name. Do not let a smile sign your life away. I want to tell you about the smell of the house on ordinary Tuesdays, because ordinary is what they tried to steal. On ordinary Tuesdays the coffee maker coughed twice before it poured. The hallway light took a half-second longer than it should, a quirk Robert never fixed because he said it gave the house character. Character, he claimed, was just a polite word for unfinished work you learn to love. Vanessa hated unfinished work. She hired a man to replace the hallway bulb sensor without asking. When I said I liked the delay, she looked at me as if I had confessed to collecting dust on purpose. Nostalgia is not a floor plan, she said. I wanted to answer that nostalgia built the floor plan. I washed a plate instead. There were Sundays when Daniel still came into the suite with 2 mugs and sat on the foot of my bed like he was 17 again. Those Sundays became rare. Then they became myths I told myself so I could sleep. Once he almost told me something. He started a sentence with "Mom, I think Vanessa," and then his phone buzzed and the sentence died in his throat like a bird against glass. I did not finish it for him. Grown men must finish their own sentences or they will live inside other people's paragraphs forever. The fireproof box had a scratch on the lid from the day Robert dropped a wrench on it and laughed until he coughed. I traced that scratch every time I opened it. Objects hold laughter longer than people do. Inside, under the deed, was a photo of us at the county fair in 1991. I had mustard on my chin. Robert thought it was adorable. I thought it was humiliating. Now I would pay any price to be humiliated by mustard again instead of by a brochure. When Claire explained conversion and ownership, I watched her pen move. Lawyers write in a rhythm that feels like rain on a tin roof, steady, uninterested in your feelings, completely committed to not leaking. You do not need to be cruel, she said. You need to be clear. Cruelty had already visited my kitchen wearing lipstick. Clarity was the guest I invited back. I remember the exact weight of the nursing home brochure. Heavier than a greeting card. Lighter than a book. Perfect for sliding across polished wood into someone else's future. I kept it. Not as a wound souvenir. As evidence of tone. Tone is hard to prove until you hold the prop. On the morning of the moving truck, a cardinal sat on the porch rail and screamed at the world like it paid rent. Robert used to say cardinals were reminders. I do not know of what. Maybe of staying red when winter tries to gray you out. I nodded at the bird like a neighbor and got in the car. Vanessa's voice when she called me dramatic will live in my ears longer than some songs. Dramatic. The word people use when a woman refuses to evaporate on schedule. If telling the truth about my own deed is drama, then let the theater stay open. Daniel asked me later if I hated Vanessa. Hate is a hot coal. I did not want it in my pocket forever. I wanted distance, locks that worked, and grandchildren who did not learn that love means managing an old woman's exit. I hate what she taught you about power, I said. That is different. There is a grocery store 2 miles away where the cashier still calls me Mrs. Hale and asks about my tomatoes. The week after Monday's truck, she said I looked lighter. I changed the locks on a bad idea, I told her. She laughed without needing the whole story. Some women understand half a sentence and the whole war. If you are waiting for a cinematic explosion, I will disappoint you on purpose. Real justice in family houses is often a stack of papers, a calm voice, and a son finally saying a sentence that costs him something. That is enough. That has to be enough. Otherwise we spend our last decades auditioning for other people's comfort. I still walk the porch at dusk. I still hear Robert in the squeak of the third step. I still keep the deed where I can reach it without drama. And when I pass the dining table, I sometimes touch the wood where the brochure landed. Slap. Then I make tea. Then I sit in my own chair in my own house under my own name. That is the ending. Not fireworks. Furniture that still belongs to me. Before I go, a practical list, because stories without tools are only entertainment. 1. Know what your name is on. Deed. Accounts. Car. Insurance beneficiaries. 2. Keep copies outside the house. A friend. A lawyer. A safe deposit box. 3. Do not argue your worth with someone measuring your square footage for their renovation mood board. 4. If children are used as messengers of your erasure, speak to them gently and truthfully without turning them into soldiers. 5. Quiet is not always peace. Sometimes quiet is a timer. I wish someone had handed me this list at 60. I am handing it to you now, from the other side of a brochure and a locksmith appointment. Thank you again for staying. Long stories are for people who know healing does not fit in a minute. If you want another family revenge story, another quiet payback, another reminder that karma can wear a cardigan and still win, you know where to find me. Until then, keep your keys. Keep your papers. Keep your dignity where no one can sticky note it into a guest zone. Good night from 14 Willow Bend. There is one more afternoon I should not skip, because it explains why the brochure did not break me on contact. 2 months before that kitchen meeting, Vanessa hosted a dinner for her work friends. She asked me to stay in the suite until dessert. Not asked. Instructed. She said the lighting in my corner of the house was not aesthetic enough for photographs. I sat on my bed and listened to strangers laugh in my living room. Someone complimented the crown molding Robert installed. Vanessa said, "We redid a lot when we moved in." We. As if her name had swung a hammer in 1987. I wrote in my notebook, claimed the crown molding. Claimed the house with a pronoun. That night I did not sleep angry. I slept precise. Precision is anger that went to law school in secret. When the brochure finally came, it did not invent the war. It only named the battlefield. So if you are listening for a single villain moment, understand this: the villain was a pattern. The brochure was the period at the end of a long sentence I refused to let her write alone.